Magnet projects, just like most initiatives, revolve around three core elements: structure, process, and prioritization. Fail to build your project around these principles and it can very quickly spin out of control, or worse, never get off the ground in the first place. So if you're looking for tips to avoid common pitfalls with these core elements, stick around because we're going to talk about it. Hi, I'm Katie Stevens, and welcome to Excellence in Nursing. I'm a nursing consultant, coach, and educator, and I work with Magnet program directors and healthcare organizations to help them successfully navigate the Magnet journey. Today, I'd like to welcome you back to our Magnet Project Management series, where we're diving into how to manage all of the various moving parts of the Magnet journey. In our last video, we set the foundation by talking about mindset shifts and getting organized with the right tools. So if you missed that, I've linked that in the description below and you can check that out. In today's video, we're going to be taking things a step further by breaking down how to structure your Magnet work and then really prioritize what matters most. And be sure to stick around for the final video, the third video, where we're going to be focusing on how to manage teams, timelines, and avoid bottlenecks to keep your project running smoothly. So here's what we're going to be covering today. First, I'm going to walk you through how to break the Magnet journey into manageable stages to help you map out your plan. Next, we're going to dive into practical strategies for prioritizing your projects so that you can really spend your time and energy where it counts. And then finally, I'll share some tips for really zeroing in on high impact, high value work that drives the biggest results. So my goal by the end of this video is that you'll have some actionable strategies and some tools to help you organize your Magnet efforts and align your priorities with the ultimate goal, which is of course, Magnet designation. In the first video series, we talked about the value of breaking down the Magnet journey into manageable pieces. This approach really makes the entire process less overwhelming and honestly a lot more approachable. So we also discussed the importance of using a centralized tracking system to manage all of the moving parts of the Magnet process. I also shared some specific tools that I use, like the Magnet Gap Analysis Tracker and the SOE Alignment Tracker, and that how all of these tools actually roll up into that overarching master Magnet tracker. Today, I want to build on all of that by showing you how I create the tools that I use to ensure that really no stone is left unturned as I'm doing all of this Magnet planning. I'm going to walk you through the framework that I use to map out that entire Magnet process. And so my goal is to give you some guidance so that you can create your own tools that align with the bigger picture of your own unique Magnet journey. Now, I'll be honest with you, and I feel a little embarrassed admitting this, but there was definitely a time early on in my career when I thought that the planning was kind of a waste of time. I really always felt like I needed to be doing something to make progress. I felt like if I wasn't actively, checking all of these things off of my to-do list, that I wasn't moving forward. But I will tell you that I quickly learned that jumping straight into action without a really solid plan really left me spinning my wheels many times. It left me feeling very reactive and stressed. And, sometimes I even had to redo some of the work. So what I've learned now at this point is that planning really isn't about taking time away from action. It's really about making sure that all of the actions that you take are really intentional and they're aligned. Now, the way I look at this is that it's really about working smarter, not harder. And once I learned to really slow down and focus on planning first, everything really changed. I wasn't just reacting to problems as they came up. I was really being proactive about managing the process, which made me a lot more efficient. It helped me be a lot less stressed, and it also made me a lot more confident in leading any team that I was on. So I want to re-emphasize something that we've talked about before, that there really is no right way to organize the Magnet work. What I'm going to be sharing with you is a method that I found really helpful in my own practice. And so take what resonates with you, adapt it to your needs, and just discard and leave the rest. So let's talk about structuring the Magnet process and really breaking it down into more manageable stages. This approach not only makes the work feel less daunting, but it also ensures that nothing gets overlooked. I use what I call the 7-stage Magnet designation framework. It's the system that I created a few years ago, and I rely on that to help organizations really plan and map out all of their Magnet work. Now, what I will say is that there's no magic to this framework. It's really just the most intuitive way that I have found to organize the process. During the initial planning phase, each stage really builds on the previous one. However, what I will say is that as you begin to execute on all of this work, you're going to find that the process is very dynamic and it will not follow a strict linear path. So stage 1 in the framework is the organizational gap analysis and evaluation stage. This is really where everything begins. This is the gap analysis phase. So in this stage, we conduct a deep dive into the organization's current state and compare it to the Magnet requirements. This involves gathering and assessing all of your Magnet outcome data, a lot of documents, as well as gathering stakeholder input. The goal here is to set a solid foundation by identifying the organization's strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. And these areas for improvement are the gaps that will need to be addressed as you move further into your journey. Stage 2 is the gap prioritization and strategy development stage. So once you've got your gaps identified, this is where you start prioritizing them based on their impact, their feasibility, and their alignment with the Magnet requirements and criteria. For example, if nursing satisfaction and engagement scores need improvement, you might create an action plan to really improve that engagement through professional governance or through maybe professional development programs. So in this stage, this is where I use that centralized tracker to really map out each gap. We map out the priority level, as well as all of the associated actions or strategies that are needed to close those gaps. So we'll talk more about prioritization in the next section of this video. Stage 3 is the gap closure execution stage. In this stage, this is where it's really time to roll up your sleeves and get to work. This is really where all of your strategies are executed. This could be things like implementing initiatives, gathering data, and tracking all of your progress. And again, this is where I use that centralized tracking system to really stay on top of all of the tasks and milestones as I work to close those gaps, or the team works to close those gaps. Now, it's really important to note in this stage that this could actually last several months and even years, really depending on the scope and the complexity of the initiatives that you're working on. For example, long-term projects like improving nursing engagement, as we mentioned before, or enhancing clinical quality metrics, those often take quite a bit more time to address and then obviously then close those gaps. So stage 4 is the Magnet documentation planning stage. In this stage, this is where I actually structure the Magnet document itself. This is where all of the groundwork for the written submission comes together. This is where I align SOEs, organize stories, and really prepare the team for exemplar writing. To keep everything on track, this is where I use that SOE alignment tracker. This tool really helps me to map out data, evidence, and stories to the appropriate SOE in the Magnet manual. I also use this stage to really identify any gaps in documentation or evidence. I will tell you, I have found over the years that it is really helpful to tackle these documentation gaps sooner than later. And so this stage will really help you do that. Stage 5 is the documentation and execution phase. This is really where everything comes together, where all of your preparation starts turning into tangible results. In this phase, you'll focus on writing exemplars, polishing drafts, and really ensuring that every piece aligns with the criteria that's outlined in the Magnet manual. Engaging your team is really critical in this stage. So hosting writing workshops can really provide great support to really ensure that there's consistency in your tone, style, and content across all of your exemplars. Also, this is the stage where you're going to want to be diligent about closing any of the gaps that were identified in your earlier stages, whether it's a missing piece of data, it's incomplete stories, or unclear alignment with SOEs. This is really the time to resolve all of those issues before you finalize your submission. Stage 6 is the site visit preparation. So once your document has been submitted, it's really time to focus on preparing for the site visit. This is really a critical stage where the work that was done on paper starts translating into action and engagement and readiness across the organization. This includes mock surveys, leadership preparation, engaging key stakeholders, especially frontline nurses, and then also handling all of the logistics for site visit, things like scheduling interviews, preparing meeting spaces, and really testing out all of your technology. So in this stage, this is where I use the site visit tracker to really monitor preparation tasks, making sure that all of the team members really understand their roles and all of the deadlines that are leading up to site visit. Stage 7 is your time to celebrate. So after your site visit and your designation, make sure that you really take time to soak it all in and truly celebrate and honor all of the hard work that brought you to this moment. So host a celebration event, publicly recognize your team internally and externally. There are so many great ways to really celebrate this success. So my recommendation is to really do it up here. Bask in all of the glory. It is well-deserved. So also I would recommend, please take a well-deserved break, whether that's an individual vacation, maybe it's doing some team outings, but make sure you take a break. But here's something to remember. So Magnet is a cycle of excellence, so don't stop. I have seen in the past organizations really pour everything into achieving their designation, celebrating, and then for whatever reason, the momentum kind of stops. They might let their professional governance stall, or they might let some of their quality initiatives slow down. And then when it comes to redesignation, they really face an uphill battle. So that's why it's so important to really celebrate and recharge, but then get back on that horse. So, use this milestone as really a springboard for the next chapter. So after recognizing your team's achievements, you're going to want to revisit stage 1 again and start planning for the future, start planning for that next designation. So excellence, as we've talked about before, is not a one-time event. It's really a continuous journey, and maintaining that momentum really ensures that Magnet remains embedded in the organization's culture. So this was an overview of the 7-stage framework, and really this is the foundation for everything I do when I'm building out all of my Magnet project trackers. Each tracker, whether it's that gap analysis tracker, the SOE alignment tracker, or the site visit tracker, etc., is really directly tied to this framework to ensure that no detail is overlooked. So in today's video, we've really covered a high-level overview of the 7 stages. For a deeper dive, again, be sure to download our free Magnet Designation project guide. I think that you'll find that this free guide has some really great checklists and tips to help you think through every aspect of the process in each stage. So whether you're just starting out or you might be deep into the work, I think that you'll find this as a really handy resource to keep you organized and focused. As we wrap up this section of this video, we've hit on this before, I want you to keep in mind that this Magnet work is not linear. So some aspects of the process do follow a clear linear order, like the order of submitting your application and then submitting your documentation and then preparing for your site visit, the call, and then your designation. That is a linear process. But the project as a whole is very dynamic. So you will often revisit earlier stages to refine strategies or address new challenges that might be emerging. So I just want to remind you that flexibility is key. Once you have your structure in place, the next step is to prioritize all of your efforts. So managing the Magnet journey involves so many moving parts that trying to tackle everything at one time is really a recipe for burnout, which is why prioritization and triaging are absolutely so critical. So you only have so much time, energy, and bandwidth, and you're going to want to make wise use of all of these things. So you really want to make sure that all of your efforts are really strategic and effective. That way you can make meaningful progress without overwhelming yourself, your team, or losing sight of your ultimate goal. Instead, here's what I would suggest. So I try to stay focused on 3 key factors when I'm prioritizing projects. The first one is impact. The second one is alignment with Magnet goals. Is it aligned? And the third one really is then feasibility. My first priority is always on the work that has the greatest impact on patient outcomes, because at the end of the day, Magnet is all about improving care. So these projects are really non-negotiable. These could be projects like aiming to reduce hospital-acquired infections or improving patient satisfaction scores, or it could be reducing falls with injury, or maybe it's readmission rates. So these are really the initiatives that demonstrate your organization's measurable impact on patient care. And so those are always at the top of the list. After patient outcomes, I prioritize projects that support nursing engagement and satisfaction. The nursing literature consistently and overwhelmingly supports the idea that engaged and satisfied nurses are one of the driving forces behind better patient outcomes and also to long-term organizational success. So some examples of these kinds of projects could be, implementing or improving your professional governance structures. It could be expanding professional development opportunities, or it could be maybe improving nurse retention through mentorship programs or something like flexible scheduling initiatives. The next thing I focus on is projects and stories that are absolutely critical to moving the Magnet document forward. And this could mean things like addressing gaps in practice or organizational structure that really directly align with Magnet criteria and that are going to be needed for document submission. It could be SOEs that require empirical data or evidence to support them that maybe we don't currently have. It could be all of the stories that need to be written, polished, and then finalized for document submission. And, how are we going to get all of that done? So one of the questions that I always ask myself are, what are the absolute must-haves to keep this document on track? And so those end up becoming those non-negotiable items that drive my weekly and monthly priorities. After prioritizing based on impact and alignment, the next factor I look at is feasibility. This is really the anchor that keeps all of those big ideas grounded in reality. It helps you decide whether a project is realistic given your available time, resources, and capacity. I will usually look at a few things. So does this work require significant stakeholder buy-in? Do we have the necessary resources like staffing or budget available? And are there any dependencies or risks that could actually delay progress? What I've learned is that not every project can or should be tackled all at once. So larger, more complex projects like long-term quality improvement projects, those could span 6 to 12 months, maybe longer, and they also require significant coordination across multiple departments. So these are really best categorized, in my opinion, as, say, a medium or long-term goal. Now, on the other hand, there are also smaller, more manageable tasks, things like drafting a single exemplar or gathering data from an already completed initiative, and those can be really prioritized as short-term wins. So I have found that balancing these three factors, impact, alignment, and feasibility, really help me allocate time and energy strategically. It prevents me from getting burnt out, both myself and the team. It helps keep the team really focused, and it also ensures that every effort really contributes meaningfully to that larger Magnet journey. And it not only avoids overwhelm, but it also ensures that you have progress that is really steady and sustainable. We're going to wrap up today's video with some quick tips on how I stay focused on the high impact, high value work that truly moves the needle on your Magnet projects. The first tip is to regularly reevaluate your priorities. So Magnet work is dynamic and priorities can shift as challenges arise, as timelines change, and as new opportunities might emerge. So make sure that you set some time aside, weekly or monthly, to really reassess what's most urgent and address any new roadblocks or opportunities. So this regular check-in can really help you stay agile and aligned with your goals. So some of the questions that I ask myself are what's most urgent right now? Are there any new roadblocks that we need to address? Do we have any new opportunities that we didn't anticipate 3 months ago? So what I've found is that what felt critical a few months ago may not be as relevant today. Number 2, focus on measurable goals. High impact work really requires clear, measurable outcomes, and success should not be a guessing game. So define exactly what you're aiming for and how you're going to track that progress. So when you set measurable goals, it not only gives your team clarity, but it also creates a sense of accountability. Everyone knows what success looks like, and they can all stay motivated as we work toward that. Number 3, balance quick wins with long-term goals. So quick wins can be really powerful when it comes to building momentum and keeping your team energized. So these are going to be the things that are the smaller, more manageable tasks that really show some visible progress without months and months of effort. This is things like finalizing some of your data collection or hosting maybe a nice workshop for people. So at the same time that you're working on those quick wins, don't lose sight of those larger goals, things like those larger quality improvement initiatives. It could be maybe addressing really significant gaps in your SOE documentation. So with balancing quick wins with long-term objectives, you can make sure that your progress is really steady without overwhelming your team. Tip number 4 is to measure progress regularly, weekly if you can. It's really easy to lose focus if you don't track whether your efforts are really moving the needle. So what I like to do is I like to build in a weekly rhythm of reflection and accountability. So some of the questions that I ask myself are, what progress did we make this week on our top priorities? Are we on track to hit our measurable goals? And if not, why? What are the barriers that are slowing us down? And how can we try to work to eliminate those? This really creates a powerful feedback loop that helps me to spot and correct course before small issues can snowball into big delays. So celebrate wins, big or small, and then reset for the next week. In the next video, the final part of our Magnet project management series, we're going to be focusing on managing teams, timelines, and avoiding bottlenecks. This is really where everything that we've covered so far comes together. I'll be sharing tips with you to keep your team organized, to maintain momentum, and to ensure that your project really stays on track. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more insights on magnet recognition and nursing excellence. And don't forget to download our free MPD handbook and that 7-stage magnet designation project guide. They are packed with some really great tips to help you gain a lot more clarity and confidence in your magnet work. Also, if you happen to feel stuck, you need some personalized guidance, or you want just some trusted advice on your magnet journey, check out our on-demand consulting services. All of the details will be linked in the description below. And before we go today, always remember that on the journey to excellence, you make the difference. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.